Oh, what is leaking now? I'm tired of fixing this thing.
Why don't you just put an LS in it?
If I do that, what am I going to do with all my spare time?
You're going to spend time with me?
I don't think so. Alright, well, obviously we don't have time to do a complete LS swap on this truck, but it has a leaking radiator that has been driving us crazy. Every time I drive it, I have to put a couple gallons of water in it, and I just can't deal with that anymore. It's a 1974 C20 pickup. It's the truck that I drive every day. And I'm not going to buy a radiator for a 1974 C20. I'm going to put a LS Swap 2004 radiator in it, okay? That radiator that we're going to do today will fit on anything from 1967 all the way up into the end of the square bodies, is what I know. And it works perfectly in them, especially if you're going to run a mechanical fan. I went this morning, I picked everything up that I needed at O'Reilly's. They had that there at the store. I don't know if they would have had one for a 1974 pickup, and that's kind of why I do it. And we also don't like to waste money when we know we're going to do an LS swap. So we also mount the radiator differently now, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. And it's the same for this 28-inch radiator versus the 34-inch one that we use with electric fans. And Emily is going to share with you all the experience that she knows about cooling systems for the last 35 years. Okay. All right, so let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, so this is a 1974 C20, and this is a question that we get asked about quite a bit when it comes to cooling systems. This truck had a Overflow cooling system in it. The Overflow cooling system was used for a long, long time, okay? It's riddled with problems, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into doing it, but we are going to change it to a, like an enclosed system, or it does not use an overflow bottle. It's the same system that an LS system uses, and most modern day cars now use this. Not all, but there are still cars out there that use an overflow bottle. But in order for an overflow system to work, everything has to work pretty well perfectly, okay? And on the LS system, of course, it was made a little simpler, trying to make them a little bit more reliable. And they've made them to where it doesn't have to be so crazy perfect, okay? And we're going to use, modern day parts to do it. Emily will give you a link to all of them that we use today. And in order to do it, we're going to have to tear some of this old stuff out. We're going to get the radiator out of it, the upper and lower hose out of it. We'll undo the transmission cooling lines, and we'll get started on putting some 2004, 2005 stuff back into it, okay?
Sweet. Wish a big strong hand would help me with this hose.
Yeah. How's that?
Yay, Jerry did it!
A 1974 fan shroud. It's not cracked at all.
$1,000. No low balls. I know what I got.
Gotcha.
No help. Whatever your gear.
That was mean. You scared me. Lay down. Lay down. Oh, this. Want to take that off?
Oh, the plug.
Yep. Alright, our new radiator is not going to have a 3/4 inch inlet for the heater core return, okay?
Okay.
So that plug where that is right there, that's going to be the heater return. Goes right into the back of the water pump impeller, and that's how some of them are. That's why that plug is there, and that's what we're going to have for a return.
Were you going with what, like green apple? Is that watermelon?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it does have a new thermostat in it already, okay? That's why we're not doing that. If I hadn't done that recently, I would do a thermostat at the same time, but I just put a new thermostat in it, so I'm not going to redo that, okay? So our transmission cooler lines, I just cut them because it's going to have different fittings, different style of fitting that goes to them, and our supports are going to be different. So everything is going to be a little different from this point on.
Sweet.
But that's it, okay?
Thank you.
All right. So we got rid of our overflow system in here and all the pieces and parts that we're going to have to get rid of. Before we go ahead and start putting in the new system, let's go over an overflow system a little bit and talk about how they work. And then a person can decide for themselves what they would prefer to have in it, either the overflow or a contained system, okay? So an overflow system, all right? What did they consist of? Well, that's the overflow bottle, all right? And you had your radiator, of course, your heater hoses, your radiator cap. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
Your hoses.
Oh, hoses. I know the hoses, okay. All right, but how did they work? Well, what would happen is your pressure builds up inside your radiator due to thermal expansion, okay? Everything that I know of, when you heat it up, it expands, including liquids. Liquid doesn't compress, but it does expand when you heat it up. So does air. It expands, and that's what's going on when you fire up your car and you start building up pressure in your cooling system. That pressure is just coming from your water getting, I don't know, bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and the air inside of it is less dense. So you're building up pressure with whatever air is in the system also. So then what happens is with an overflow system is this cap has got, I think there were 15 to 18 pounds, if I remember right. Yeah, this one says 16 on it. So this is a 16-pound cap. And when you built up 16 pounds of pressure inside your cooling system, it would shoot out of the vent tube from your overflow tube, I'm sorry, from your radiator, and it would go into your overflow bottle. Now, this has got a tube that goes all the way into the bottom of it, so it would suck up water from the bottom of it. It's not just dropping it into the bottle, okay? So that tube goes all the way to the bottom, and then as your car cooled off, then thermal expansion is going to diminish, basically. So your content is going to drop, and then you're going to have a vacuum, basically. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen like a radiator hose, an upper radiator hose collapse, and that's what it's doing. It doesn't have it had too much hot air in it, and as that thermal expansion goes away, it starts to create that vacuum, and that hose is sucking in. And when it does that, when it's creating that vacuum, there's the little, I guess you'd call it a valve on the radiator cap that it would basically pull that open and let the coolant that was in this bottle run back into the radiator system. Okay,
I see.
and fill the radiator back up. And that's how it would keep its level. Like, that's its cold level. All right. So you'd start your car up. I always thought it was like about 5% volume. If you changed it 150 degrees, it might raise up, a few inches is all it would do. And then when it was cold again, drop back down to the cold level. But the problem with that is when you have any kind of a leak, that's not going to happen. And also, it was always when you replaced a radiator, which we did radiators like crazy back in my day, always replace the hoses. Even a radiator, upper lower radiator hose that's bad and it collapses, when it collapses, it's not going to pull that liquid coolant back into the system. So the whole system relies on the hoses being just right, the radiator not having a leak. The minute you had a leak here at your tube, at your radiator overflow tube, it would just leak there, and then you wouldn't get your coolant back in it. So there were a lot of options for overflow systems to not work. Mm-hmm. Okay, but as long as everything was 100% with them, really, they did work pretty good, and they are still used today on cars.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So, but that's what we're getting rid of today. And we're going to put in what they use on a LS truck. Most vehicles now, especially diesels. Diesels don't love overflow tanks, but here we go. Okay, so this bottle, this is your, what do you call it? They call them degas bottles. I just call it the coolant reservoir. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, there's your fluid line right there. You can hardly read it, of course. And then that's the hot line right there. So what they're expecting is you to start your car or your truck, and as the thermal expansion starts to happen, the coolant is going to raise up to about that much. All right. So what's in the top here is going to be whatever air you have in your system. And the air in the system is the problem. That's what you don't want. That's why LS has the steam ports on it, because the thermostat's mounted real low. You don't want to have a pocket of air up in the top of a cylinder head that you can't work out. That's where a steam port drains it off into the radiator, and then it gets pushed off into the top of this. So, like I said, the air expands also, so you're going to build up that 15 pounds of pressure in here. You're going to build up 15 pounds of pressure everywhere. Pressure is pressure, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if your LS system or this system, when we're done with it, all of our air that's in the system is hopefully just in that top spot of this reservoir.
Yeah.
And then you can pop your hood and just take a look and see. We're gonna put Dexcool coolant in this thing, and I'll just be able to look at the bottle and I'll go, oh, okay, it's full of coolant.
Yeah.
And it's at its proper level, and I know that everything's kosher with it, and no problems. And then also, thing warms up, I see it rise up a little bit, then I really know everything's going great with it, And primarily, that's why I like doing this system, is because it's so much more forgiving. Like if you did have a small leak, you still are going to have all of that access to the coolant that's in there. It's not pushing it into an overflow bottle that you're not going to get back out. You're going to mount that bottle up as high as possible, so you've got your water line way above what your engine is, and everything is going to get cooled off the best it can. And then when you open up your hood every 6 months, you can take a look and see that you're still full of coolant. And that's what I really like about them.
Yeah.
This is the radiator that we're going to put in this today. It's a 28-inch radiator from a 2004 or 2005 Chevy Silverado 1500. Some of them didn't have the heavy duty ones, the 34-inch ones that we normally do. We've shown you how we do a 34-inch one, and all the 34-inch ones, I always just put electric fans on them because that's what they're made for. But this radiator was made for mechanical fans, which a lot of people use and they work fine. And we have this radiator in Emily's 1970 Chevy C10. It fits perfectly because those pickups have a really different radiator support system on it. They have a rib that goes on each side of it that you really can't fit a real big wide one in it. Bought it today. I walked into the O'Reilly store and walked out with it. I couldn't have done that probably with a 1974 radiator if I clicked on purchase one of those.
Yeah.
The other thing I like about them is I can buy a all aluminum one just like this. So I could go just Google 2004 Chevy truck, 28-inch radiator, all those nice companies out there that have great, big 3-core all aluminum radiators for these things. I can do that and drop it in after we get this all done. Okay, so we could drive it for a couple of years, and we probably will when we get around to doing an LS swap on it. I'll take this one out, I'll put a bigger all aluminum radiator in it, and everything will be already done. Okay, so I won't have to work on it again. We've done this a couple times, and we're gonna share with you everything that we have learned about them. Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, try not to talk behind the camera.
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
Yes.
My bad.
Yeah, you bet. All right. So what I do is I try to make these things so, say you were 1,000 miles away from home and you had to pull into a parts store and replace your radiator. So I'm gonna do it and make sure that I don't have to make any modifications to this. It's all gonna be bolt in. So how did I go about doing that? I initially started knowing that I wanted the radiator to, sit in the exact same spot, but how to mount them on the bottom of the radiator core support was the issue. And what I used to do was take the radiator core support from the donors. I would cut the bottom plate out of it. And we've done videos on that, and I've shown you how we did that. And that does work, but what I did is I started running out of those lower radiator core support, and I could get the top portions of them, no problem, but the bottom portions, whatever. So I had to come up with a solution. So I started making these, and we sell them. Emily will put them on our merch store, right?
Yep.
Okay. But all they are is a little steel cup. This is the support that goes on the bottom of these radiators. And this one's been messed with a little bit, but this one's a nicer one. And so this is what that radiator sits in. And so I just made a cup that just sits in it. So I place the radiator where I want it, and I drill a hole for each one of them. Bolt them in with a couple of 5/16 grade 8 bolts, and there you go. Your radiator support is done on the bottom on these. Yeah. And on anything that I could think of from 67 all the way up to 88, right?
Yeah, I guess as long as you've got that ledge, that lip down there to mount it to.
Right. So what I also learned too, when I did the very first one of these, I got it all done, and I went to close the hood, and the hood would not close.
Yeah.
The piece that I used on the top for the radiator, I think it was a 78, which would be the same as this one, and it hit, and the hood would not close. So I felt pretty stupid, and I had to redo the whole thing. But what I learned doing these radiators was no matter what you were working with them, get them in there as low as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you put them in as low as possible. That makes the best sense also when it comes to the water, because you want your water level in your radiator to be lower than your overflow bottle and your engine. You know, you don't want to have a big airspace up on the top of the radiator. So
yeah.
So the lower it is, the better. But you also have to pay attention to the lower radiator hose and make sure that it's got access to, not interfering with anything. And then, like I said too, I make it so this radiator does not have to be modified in any way whatsoever. All right. So how I do it, I don't have a junk radiator to work with, but I'll take and I'll place them on the radiator. Found a longer tie strap.
Yes, actually.
All right, so my tie strap's going to hold my radiator in there for me, so I don't have to mess around with it. The thing is, with these radiators, they are not centered with the engine. You would think that they are centered with the motor, but they're not. It's shifted about an inch that way. You can get the whole thing done and then figure that out, which I've done. Okay. If you look at the shroud, this is the shroud off the donor, and this is what we're going to use because I think they look cool when we're done. And we could use the shroud off the 74. It's perfectly intact, but a lot of people don't have the shroud anymore because it's from 1974.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with a 34-inch radiator too. So
yeah.
But the 34-inch radiator doesn't use that, so it doesn't matter. You can put those where you want them, where they work the best.
Yeah.
As long as your hoses go to them fine. But what I do is I take the shroud, and also this shroud right now I could buy it on Rock Auto, and it's less than $40. Believe it or not.
Good grief.
The two pieces. It's a two-piece shroud, less than $40 for the both of them.
Jeez.
So I put the shroud on it, and then I basically line up my center. It's 20 inches, so it's shifted off just a tiny bit over to the passenger side. So 20 inches, 10 inches would be the center, but it's pretty close. Okay, so I know that's where I want my radiator to sit. So I took and I make my yellow mark, and I measured that. That's the center line of that radiator. But if you look straight across, you'll notice it doesn't hit straight across with the water pump or the crankshaft.
Yeah.
But that's where I want it to sit, because if you shift that radiator over and use that fan shroud, your fan's going to hit.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to use an electric fan or something like that, put the radiator wherever you want.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's kind of what's nice about the electric fans sometimes.
Yeah, but you could, make it work with pretty much anything. This one. But we did this one on your 70, and it fits in its hole exactly. And then your fan shroud, which is that one, we used a donor fan shroud, and it lined up perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
So now we got that where we want it. So I have my steel cups down there that I made, and they're pretty reasonable. What do we sell them for? $430 a piece?
Yeah, but that includes shipping. So.
That's true. 400 of it shipping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I could take and push it in against the firewall a little bit, but I don't want to do that. I want the radiator to be standing up straight, and I don't want it to be hitting on anything, rubbing on anything. So I pull it a ways a little bit, and when I do the other one, I look at the old radiator and kind of see what its line is, and I kind of mimic that same line so the radiator is standing straight up. And then so I'm going to come in here on one of them with a paint marker, and I just mark where my little cup is at. So then I hold it still and I pull my radiator out. Okay. Then I still hold it still, and I pull the insulator out of it there. Hold it where it was, come in with the drill.
Yeah, it's kind of nice because most of the time that's rotted out right there, so there's not much to drill through.
Yeah, this core sport's pretty rotten though.
Yeah,
it needs replaced. It will get replaced someday, otherwise I would have painted it all up nicely, but it does need to be replaced. So there you go. I've got the 5/16 bolt in that. I'll put a nut and lock washer and washer on it later. And I looked out, it sits right next to this raised ridge. On the other side, we're going to have to grind some of that off because I want it to sit in this one as low as possible. But my little cup that I made, it sits right next to it. So that side is fine. So I'm going to set it back in there. So we go into the driver's side. I make sure it's lined up, and the little cup kind of finds its little place that it likes to sit. Hold the cup in place.
Okay.
Ooh, I missed the ridge on this side too. So this one I really pay attention to where I get the right there. And just to be sure, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grind that flat right there. Okay. And I might do it on the other side too. So. Good.
Sweet.
All right. So there's that mount. Pretty cool, huh? So these insulators, when I did this one, I want this radiator to be really low. The mounts that I make them as short as possible so they'll work on anything really. Say you were working on something and you wanted that radiator and you wanted to lift it up, then you could get like a thick washer, put underneath it, build it up to whatever height you want. But on this one, I wanted that radiator to sit low. So I'll go in and I'll grind that off, that ridge. So the radiator will drop down that much. And also I have to go in and I grind off about 1/8 of an inch, or you grind off a quarter and it wouldn't matter, you know, it just sits inside that cup.
Yeah.
So you can see where I ground it.
Yeah.
It just makes the radiator on this truck sit a little lower, and I'll explain why in a second. But I'm gonna grind them up first. I'm gonna take the rest of that ridge off. Always wear safety glasses, right?
Safety third.
Safety third. So, There they are. Now, if I just did everything okay, I should be able to set my radiator in there, and it should be in its spot.
Okay.
That one. Get it in there. That.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I've done it before where I didn't get it 100%, where I didn't like it, kind of. Then I just go down and I drill a 3/8 hole, use a bigger fender washer on my 5/16, and then it, like a cam, it gives me a little adjustment to run things around and move things if I needed to. But I like the way that one sits. Don't you? I'm gonna double check my center line. Yep, my center line looks real good that I marked before. So we have the radiator sitting in here, and it's sitting as low as I can possibly get it. And I mean, when I say as low as I can possibly get it, like I said, I'm leaving room at the lower hose. Because you got to put the lower hose on that goes over to the water pump, right? So that's as low as I'm comfortable letting that radiator sit, and it's going to work perfectly there. This is what I'm going to have on it for the radiator support to hold it to the upper, or to the truck's radiator core support. And it's off the donor. We've got a video of how we do that. One of our subscribers gave us that idea, so it wasn't our idea, but it was an ingenious idea.
Yep.
And we'll have to clean it up, make it look nice. But for what we're doing today, it's gonna work fine. Same thing. These things come off of 2000 all the way up into
Gen 4 and
Yeah,
all
we're-
of them. That
yeah.
piece is the same.
So there's a bunch of these out there. I buy these from salvage yards, and if I don't have a donor vehicle, but I absolutely take them off the donor vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
It's just cut out of the top of the radiator core support. So when we're all done, I'll trim that off so it sits a little closer. But, you know, basically that's how it looks. And I'm just putting it in there right now to get my distance so my radiator is sitting where it's going to sit. So I can do my hoses now. I can put my fan back on. I can put my lower radiator shroud on. I can't do my transmission cooler lines because these are 5/16 lines, and I forgot to get some 5/16 to 3 adapters. So I'll have to do that tomorrow when I get the adapters. All right? But that's kind of a no-brainer, right? The Gates heater hose. This is the hose for a 1974 C20 with a 350 cubic inch fire-breathing small block Chevy. This radiator, it fits the exit on the radiator on the passenger side perfect, and of course it's going to fit the water pump because it's made for this truck. When the day comes that we do an LS in it, that's made for an LS, but it fits in this pickup. So here we go. The hose that was on it, it was a worm gear clamp. Don't really care for them, but that might be what I need to seal it on this water pump. And but I do like constant tension clamps, and I'm going to use that because we're running it on a brand new radiator. So we've got 2 brand new surfaces, a good hose, and so constant tension clamp. All right.
Actually, the only person that likes the spring clamps.
They're hard to work with, but they work good.
See a lot of complaints on the internet.
Yeah.
A lot of knuckles have been lost to them.
Oh, they've cut me many times. There you go. There's the lower radiator hose. It's not touching anything. It's not rubbing on anything. When I get these done, they won't be touching the hose. I can go down there and add just a little bit of bend to them, and they'll run right through there and go to the radiator. No problem. So let me do the lower clamps. I just wish somebody would make a better tool for them.
Yeah.
I've bought all the tools and none of them really seem to work all that great.
Yeah, we've got cheap ones, we've got Snap-on, Blue Point. They all stink.
Fancy cable pliers, bird pliers like you like to call them.
Those actually probably work the best.
They work great if the clamp is just right.
Yeah, if you get the right angle on it.
This one I'll have to use a screwdriver.
Do you know how?
Gosh, well, it depends on who you ask.
Depends on who's commenting today.
Yeah. Alrighty, worm gear clamp. Tight. I put all the corns to it. I'm sure it's upside down or something on. We'll find out. Oh, that's backwards. Yeah, you put that clamp on backwards. So there you have it. There's the lower radiator hose. Now, lower fan shroud. Okay, so we'll work from the bottom up basically. Before I do that, like I said, 1974 fan shroud. Perfectly intact, not a scratch on it.
I know, that's
which is weird.
rare.
This truck is awesome. It wasn't like a one owner kind of before I bought it, right?
I think so.
Yeah. But if you wanted to use the original one, it works. Okay. There's a couple little clips that it sits in, and you could actually use it on this truck if you like the way that one looked better. Mm-hmm. If you had one. But the odds of having an intact one are pretty slim.
Yeah.
So. All right, but we're not going to use that 1974 junk. We're going to use some 2004 junk.
Exactly.
And then even that, look how that hose fits against that shroud. It's perfect.
Jeez.
It's almost like Chevy designed it like that.
It's weird.
That's what we always say about LS swaps.
It's like it was made to do that.
Yeah. All right, so there you have it. There's the lower fan shroud installed. The fan bolts onto the front of the water pump. Have you ever seen that?
I've heard that.
Oh, try not to talk anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who's that dumb girl talking?
Who's that girl always got to talk? I've had that pulley off, or the fan off, so I learned a long time ago, make sure your water pump lines up with your pulley before you go and try to put it on.
Oh, before you start looking for holes that aren't there?
Yeah.
That's something I would do.
Yeah. And if it doesn't line up, you can stick a screwdriver in there and get them lined up pretty good. This truck had a 9-blade fan on it, and it doesn't need it. We're not running air conditioning on it, and I imagine that's why it had a 9-blade one, but this 5-blade one, that's all they have on AC square bodies. So we're going to put that one on.
Whee! Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Just make sure I'm centered good. All right. All right, so the lower shroud is in, and like I said, I have the radiator sitting in as low as I possibly can. Everything works perfectly fine. All right. Now, you hear that noise?
Yes.
Okay. So what that is the fan is rubbing on the shroud. And I figured this out this morning, okay? But it needs motor mounts.
Oh.
So the engine is sitting, it's dropped down at least 1/4 of an inch. So I need to put new motor mounts in it. They're from 1974. They did what they could. And I'll put some new motor mounts in it. They're going to be clamshell mounts, the stock ones, the same ones that I put in all of our LS swaps. I've talked about that a million times, but I'm going to put new motor mounts in it, and it's going to lift the front of that engine up a little bit, and that will go away. It won't be rubbing. It had plenty of space on. It has plenty of space on the top shroud, but that's the reason that it's doing that. If it wasn't that, I could go and trim that shroud, which the shroud on your 1970, we actually did trim it. It wasn't because it was hitting the fan, because an LS engine, the snout on the front is longer and the fan is deeper in. So I could also fix, if it wasn't the motor mounts that was causing this problem, I could fix it by putting, right now all it would need is like a 1/4 inch spacer.
Oh, push the fan out a little farther.
Yeah, because it's just a real thin lip that it's rubbing on that shroud.
Yeah.
Or if I didn't want to do it, didn't want to mess with that, I could put the original one on.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't do that. But that's why it's rubbing, and I'll fix it with some new motor mounts, which need to be done anyway.
Yeah.
So, along that topic, what do you think would happen if you went and you bought some motor mounts that raised your engine up like 1.5 inches, so you didn't have to go buy a low profile oil pan?
You'd be in big trouble.
Same thing. So that's something like when we talk about those motor mounts that raise the engine up, we've never talked about. But if you're going to use a mechanical fan, it poses a really big problem for you because your fan's going to be up that much higher also. There's no way getting around that other than putting in a electric fan, but you still look ridiculous with your engine pointed uphill anyway. Okay? So again, please, whatever people do, don't buy the motor mounts that raise the engine up in order to save yourself some money on an oil pan, because that does not work. It also doesn't work with the AC brackets. Buy one of our AC brackets and put them in, and don't knot your frame.
Yeah. And there's several aftermarket oil pans now, low profile oil pans, so
Yeah,
they're getting a little bit more affordable.
Yeah, they're not that expensive, and for like that amount of money, the amount of headache that it saves you is well worth it, right?
Yeah. And you should probably take it off and put a new seal on the pickup tube anyway, while you're in there.
Yeah, of course. Of course you should.
If you've been paying attention,
Yeah.
people.
So that's that. I know that it's rubbing there. It'll be fixed as soon as I put new motor mounts in it. Oh, the other thing is too, we've done this before. When I go and I put an LS in it and I use the motor mounts that I talk about all the time, nothing rubs. Everything's fine, you know. So I guess I just said that, but it's crazy that like a small block Chevy, if you put an LS in the exact same spot, so many of those things line up the way they should.
Yeah.
Unless you screw with them.
Yes.
Just don't screw with that stuff.
Yeah.
And everything will be great.
Yeah. Look at all these nice things that General Motors has done for us.
Yeah.
Let's use those.
They really have. I think it's just laziness though. They don't like to change things. You know?
I think so.
Which makes sense, I guess. Okay. So instead of putting the top shroud on now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hook up our heater hoses. And in order to do that, let's talk about the position of this bottle, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're getting into the heater hoses and the recovery bottle or the coolant bottle. It's not a recovery bottle anymore. I put them in the same spot each time. If it's this style of bottle, it's the center line of the cap is 13.5 inches away from the edge of the core support. Okay.
Okay.
And I put them there, and then I just give myself a little bit of distance behind there so it looks good. I also have to go add another bracket in here. The elves came in this morning and made one of the brackets, and so it's kind of sitting in its spot. We just got one more to do, all right?
Okay.
All right. So the height of that bottle, you want that bottle to sit up as high as possible also, but you want to be able to close your hood. So what we do is we set it up, we put a camera in here, phone or whatever, close the hood and take a look and see how much distance we have between the top of the cap and the hood when it's closed. And on this one, with it closed right now, I raised this up off of the fender about the thickness of that cap, which is about 1 inch, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I raised this bottle up about 1 inch, and it has about a 1/2 inch clearance between the top of the hood and that. The reason you want it up as high as possible, your heater core, it's fairly high, and you want your water level basically to be the highest spot on the cooling system. So the higher you can get that, the better. And then also how far back you place it. Don't forget your hinges come in here and close depending on what you have for hinges. Like on these trucks, when the hood's closed, the hinges aren't past that snubber. It folds in that way, and then this is drops down to about there. So you wouldn't want your the other ones are different, so you want to pay attention to that if you have to scoot your bottle out to miss anything like that.
Yeah.
All right. And then I put it here. People say, well, you got like 3 inches. You could go further that way. I will probably take and turn this battery. I'll put a different battery tray in it. Turn the battery the other way, and then I can put a washer reservoir right next to it because I've got that much space between the radiator and the battery. But I don't now with the battery sitting like that. All right, now on a 1974, it had its return line that went back to the radiator, and a LS doesn't have that return line going to it. So we're going to have to return it back to the return on the water pump, which is that inlet right there. But we also have to connect to this hose, and we're going to do that with the donor hose. This one come off of a 2012 truck, but it's exactly the same as the 2004s, 2005s. And so all we're going to do, we're going to go to our recovery bottle. Our 3/4 from our recovery bottle is going to go from here, and it will go into the inlet on the water pump. And then our 5/8 will just tie into our 3/4 inch return line. How's that?
Okay.
Emily took the plug out of this one. I've got a fitting for it over here. Let's put that in. I'm going to Teflon tape it. Give it a little bit of some kind of sealant. There. Okay. So this one is going to go to that one.
Oh, okay. Down there.
Yep. So I had to get a 3/4 to 3/4 adapter. If I didn't want to do that, I could cut that off and I could just go ahead and put that hose right over that and then just put a clamp on it. But I don't know if I'm gonna, I'm probably, if I reuse this one, I would just run this one to an LS engine. So I'm gonna do it this way for now, but I wouldn't have to use that if I didn't want to, if I was committing to doing it on a small block Chevy. All right, so that's this is my 5/8. It's the one that went to the 5/8 side on the LS one. I'll just put it down here. Okay, so I got a 5/8 hose to, or I'm sorry, a 3/4 inch hose to a 5/8 adapter here. Ow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this one. Okay. The radiator. So it comes with the steam port capped already for some reason. So that's done for me. The only other one would be this hose. And if you didn't want it to look like that hose, you know, you could go buy a different hose for it and make it however you wanted it to look. But I'll leave it like that.
Okay.
So with that done, our cooling system is sealed up again as soon as I put the upper radiator hose back on it. If I had the pieces for my cooling lines, I would have done them, you know, already.
Yeah, before you put the shroud on.
Yeah. But I don't, so.
Pepper, do you need a snack?
Using this piece, the radiator shroud just bolts in like it would. Any other.
Doing it this way, I mean, an LS radiator, it's pretty much just 4 bolts and hoses and it's out, so.
Yep.
Cooling lines, I guess.
That's right.
Makes it easy.
And I'll take the stickers off too, that drives me nuts. But this is the upper radiator hose for a 1974 C20 with air conditioning. So didn't have to hunt around and find a bunch of parts. It fits the water neck just fine. And then it doesn't fit that. Oh no. We're in gear clamp. So even that hose, I could trim it a little bit. I won't because of what I'm using it for. But it fits here nicely. I think on your pickup we put a little trim in there for something. I can't remember what it was, but
The intake. We're using the stock intake.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one here, I'm just going to have to. I'll get some black silicone.
Oh, okay.
And black silicone.
I don't know, it's a pretty big gap. You might try spray foam. Start with spray foam.
Oh, spray foam would work better.
Yeah.
The expanding, the higher expanding stuff. Okay, so I don't need that. I have an adapter for it.
Oh.
Goes on right like that.
Oh, it's just like a sock.
Yep. Look good?
Okay.
Yeah. I use those, or I used to use those a bunch, kind of making different things fit. But you can do that. I think that's an inch and 5/16 to an inch and quarter to inch and 5/16 adapter. We'll put that in there. But then when we do the LS in this thing, the hose for the LS just fits right on it. We don't need the adapter then.
Yeah.
Get rid of this stupid sticker. So there we go. One more hose. This hose. This is the vent hose. When this thing does overheat on this tank, that's just a hose that stops the coolant from blasting out that direction, and it directs it down here onto the inner fender well where it'll help it rust out more.
Yeah, perfect.
And then, so it rubs. No, there's no joking about that. And I'll rivet these two together, but it rubs on the bottom, but as soon as I do the motor mounts, it won't rub. And if I was lazy and didn't want to do motor mounts, I could come in here and totally just trim that inch of this fan shroud off right there. And I wouldn't have to do that, but it needs them anyway, so I'll do it, and then everything will be right.
Sweet.
So, now, coolant.
Coolant.
This truck's not going to know what to do having coolant in it all the time. We get asked all the time, what do we put in LS swaps?
Dex cool.
Dex cool, right? Back in the 80s, late 80s I think it was, General Motors started putting Dex cool in their cars. And everybody, we hated it. You would take a cap off of a radiator. The problem with, I don't know what the exact problem with it was at that time, but it was advertised as an extended life coolant. And I think it still is, but that's how they kind of promoted it. Like you could buy your car and drive it for, 30 years and not have to replace the coolant. It doesn't say that on it anymore, but that's how they advertised it. Mm-hmm. And we would have cars overheat, and then you could take the radiator cap off of something. It would be like concrete inside there.
Oh.
And so like it got a real bad rap when it went in the 90s when we were dealing with it. And I don't know why it was so bad then. Maybe somebody can tell us, but it isn't like that anymore. I use Dex Cool. Otherwise, I use gold.
Yeah,
I like the gold stuff, but if you have, if you're doing it for a customer and they're busybodies and they come to you when it's gold, mm-hmm. or it's the gold stuff, and they go, "You didn't put antifreeze in my car." We have to check it with a hydrometer, of course. And we actually had somebody mm-hmm. come back and accuse us of not putting antifreeze in his vehicle. His yes. name might have been Doug. And it was just gold antifreeze that you can't really see it all that well. Yeah. So we use orange in it so I can see it better. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go, this was full strength. I'm going to go get another gallon of tap water, not distilled water. That's a huge myth that people think that you have to use distilled water. Believe me, you walk around in shops, you don't see jugs of distilled water anywhere.
Yeah. If your tap water's not good enough to use for coolant, you got bigger problems.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is if you can drink it, you can put it in your car.
Yeah.
Okay. But that is a myth. I'll be back.
Okay.
All right, so I added a gallon of coolant to this thing, and it's not dropping. And I know 1 gallon isn't enough. It's going to take a lot more than that. So the engine's full of air, and it doesn't have a steam valve in it or steam port like a LS engine does that would go to the radiator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the outlet for the heater core, and that will let the air that's trapped inside the engine escape, and then it'll allow the rest of the water to flow into the system. And what I'll do is I'll just pinch this one off. I'll pinch both of them off actually, but I'll undo it up here. Fancy hose pinchers. Yeah. See it dropping?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll leave that about the height, a little less than what I need that to be, because we want our water level to be that high. So.
Now you can hear it. Above the line now. Oh, it's dropping again.
Yeah. So that's 2 gallons, and we know that 2 gallons is not enough either, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I gotta read more. That was good. All right, so this is 50-50 mix. Here it comes. Come on. Yeah. All right, so there we know it's pretty well full. And running it will definitely fill it. So that's about 3 gallons, right?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I know antifreeze is poisonous. I didn't drink any or get any in me at all. That was the other thing that was great in the 80s, aside from the music.
Yeah, what the antifreeze tasted better?
They come out with an antifreeze that was animal safe.
Oh.
And I can't remember what the stuff was called, but I mean, they made a big deal out of it because it was kind of like the information age where people were finding out things, and everybody found out that antifreeze was super poisonous for your animals. Mm-hmm. So they come out with this stuff, but then people found out that it was only half as poisonous. So if your animal drank 2 tablespoons of it, for instance, mm-hmm. then it'd still get sick and possibly expire.
Oh.
Versus just 1 tablespoon. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't doing much.
Yeah.
The idea was to not have animals drinking antifreeze.
Yeah. You hear that?
Unless it's like pepper.
Yeah. Drink up, Pepper.
So by doing that, we just purged all the air out, so the engine is full, got water up into the cylinder heads. When this thing is started up, the water pump, like I said, that line shoots right into the impeller on the water pump. It'll suck right out of there, and then everything will work fine as long as we don't have any leaks.
Sweet.
Okay, so and then I'll run it. I'll run the thing. I'll make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to, and then I'll take my my turkey baster thing, basically, or the hydrometer, and just pull it out, and I'll drop it down to that level, just below or just above that seam right there, with it cold, and then I can run it and check it with it hot.
Sweet.
But from now on, after doing that, every time I have to check my oil, because I got to add oil to this thing still once a week, I can just look at that tank and know that I still have all my coolant in my engine. If I look at it and it's gone, then I got problems.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think your temp gauge is working down here very good.
No. Oh, this actually works, but my gauge in the truck doesn't work. That's from me messing around with it, trying to diagnose it.
Oh.
So, I gotta fix that.
You're halfway there.
Yeah. So that's it for the cooling system on this. It's updated to 2005, 2004. It's ready for an LS when that day comes. We only spent on the radiator, these fittings, the hoses, antifreeze, the other fittings for my lines, less than $200.
Yeah.
O'Reilly's also was the cheapest for that radiator. So $200, and this thing's updated a bit. That's a super reliable truck again.
I like it.
All right, that's a 28-inch LS radiator installed on a small block Chevy. I know the top piece here, I've got to do some work on that, finish it up. We have videos on that, how I go about doing that and make that thing look nice. Go back and watch that. She'll have links in it for everything. All the parts that we use today, she'll list them for you.
Yep.
But we hope this video helps you out. If you have questions, let us know in the comments, or let us know how you did it. We always love hearing about that. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for watching. We appreciate it.